This is Success in Excess, where elite founders, lawyers, and clinic owners engineer success through strategy, scale, and systems. Powered by GrowthX.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Success in Excess, the podcast where founders unpack what it really takes to be a business owner in this economy and really make a difference. Today's guest is Josh Schmerling of Zirkin and Schmerling Law, one of the top personal injury firms in Maryland, not only by verdicts, settlements, and value, but also by impact they've made on the whole personal injury space. Josh, welcome to the episode. Thank you for coming. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Really appreciate it. Graduated law school in 2008. Job offers in 2008, the economy was horrible, and people were offering lawyers $35,000 a year as a salary. And I just decided, instead of doing that, I might as well just start my own firm. So my partner and I started our own practice. At first, we were handling a little bit of everything. You handle whatever comes through the door: family law, criminal, personal injury, workers' comp, whatever it is. And eventually we turned our firm into really a focused personal injury workers' comp firm. We started with no employees, no cases, and things were pretty slow starting off. I always joke around that my first 2 years as a lawyer, I made less than a school teacher. Love my school teachers, but they don't make a whole lot, we all know. But then the firm started to grow from there, and we now have over 30 people at the law firm. We're handling lots and lots of cases. We're staying very busy. We're constantly hiring new paralegals, new lawyers. We've grown out a nice practice, and one of the things that we do, one of the niche areas for us, is dog bite law. We do more dog bites than anybody else in the state of Maryland.
Amazing. And to reference dog bite law, right? You guys are not just, the experts on dog bite law. I believe one of your cases also made it a bill in the Maryland judicial, correct?
Yeah. So what happened? My law partner, Bobby Zirkin, he was a politician in Maryland for quite a while, first in the House of Delegates, then the state Senate. We won a nice judgment. The top offer was $6,000. We won $132,000. And so it was a nice judgment. My client was well deserving of it. Very nice young lady in her early 20s who was bit by a dog. And the defense did not like the judgment, so they filed an appeal. And on appeal, the appellate court took what the legislature had put in as the law, and they kind of helped explain and expand on what the law was saying, because there weren't a lot of definitions in the law. And the appellate court of Maryland helped expand on that.
Wow. So that's a dramatic impact just on being a personal injury lawyer, handling dog bites. But not only that, you're able to influence the future laws that are, being taken place and how it affects other people. Now, with that, you guys are doing excellent. I mean, you guys started the firm, 2 guys. Now you guys have over 30 employees. You guys have expanded all over Maryland. And I believe you guys are doing more than just personal injury and all types of personal injury as well. Currently, you're the chief strategy officer of LawPro.ai. Tell us a little bit about that. And as well, your brother's also a co-founder with you as well, correct?
Yes, that's right. Let me take one step back for a second. So just in terms of trying to help people and expand on what we're doing to help our community, our goal here at Zirkin and Schmerling Law is to help 10,000 hurt individuals in the next 10 years. That's our goal. That's our mission. And that's what we've been working towards since we've set that as our mission. And the dog bite case that helped expand the law, what it did was it made it so every delivery driver, if you're an Amazon delivery driver, or FedEx, Uber Eats, it made it so all those delivery drivers could actually recover for their injuries. Beforehand, you could not. So that's the kind of impact we've had in just the Maryland community of being able to help every post office worker. So all of those delivery drivers that we rely on every single day now can go to someone's home, do their job, and know that they'll be protected after something happens to them. And sorry.
No, I had a question. No worries. So is that every delivery driver, Uber Eats, UPS, FedEx? And how does that work with, what if there's like a no trespassing sign or a dog here sign? How does that kind of work out if, they've been alerted ahead of time and then they end up getting bitten?
Yeah, it's a great question. A no trespassing, a delivery driver, I would argue, is not trespassing, right? You've asked them to come onto your property to provide you with a product or a service. So I would say they're not trespassing. The one thing we do see from time to time is, Amazon or any delivery service, or they might put a note in the system saying this specific person has said not to come on their property. They have a dog. Leave the package or leave whatever you have at the mailbox. Don't come onto the driveway. So sometimes that does happen, and that's a fair point, that if they've already alerted the delivery service not to come onto the driveway, then they shouldn't come on. They should follow those notes. But typically that's not the case. So typically all these people would be protected. Yeah. So, I mean, so it's been really gratifying to be able to help all of these people that, there's a lot of, we rely on all these people in our daily existence to be able to get everything we do. And we relied on them during COVID for sure. And since COVID, there was that whole transformation of people just having groceries delivered to them and everything else. So to be able to make sure that all those people are protected day in, day out was really important to us. And then you had asked me about LawPro also. So I just want to talk about that for a minute as well. As our firm was growing, we were having some trouble scaling because as your firm's growing, it means you're helping more people. It means you're also having to review and understand more medical records. And so what was happening in my firm was I was having to spend more money, more time on employees, having my best people reviewing medical records constantly. And so there was less time to be, speaking to clients and strategizing and helping people because you're just inundated with medical records, which is part of what the personal injury and workers' comp law practice is. So eventually my brother and I created LawPro, and it was we did it out of need that to be able to grow, I need to be able to understand the medical records, the case values, the positive and negative evaluations of the case quicker. And so we created LawPro to do that, which LawPro, what it does is it creates medical chronologies and case summaries using artificial intelligence and engineering. So within minutes, I can have a deep understanding of my client's medical treatment. I can have a deep understanding of the issues in the case, what the problems might be, or what the key values are of the case, to be able to argue that to the insurance company to get my client's full value. And the clients get to wait less time because they don't have to wait for me and my staff going through medical records. And we get to pull out all these really incredible value drivers that help increase values of the case for the clients. Just to give you one quick example, last week, I was working on a case where my client got a wrist surgery, and I negotiated with the adjuster, and the adjuster said, top offer is $140,000, take it or leave it or file suit. I went back to LawPro and I said, is there anything else that I could argue here to increase the offer? And what I found was my client had actually woke up during the surgery. And I mentioned this to the adjuster, and the adjuster said, oh my goodness, that's crazy. And he said, let me go reevaluate. And he reevaluated the case, and we settled the case for an extra almost 100%. So it made a huge difference for my client to be able to get this additional money based on the settlement. My client had already said he would take the offer, but now when we were able to show more value, my client was really happy that we went to fight for him and battle for him. So what LawPro did is it helps us find these insights, it helps us do it quicker, and it allowed me from a law firm perspective to not have to use my best people reviewing medical records all day. It allows them to stay more in touch with clients, make sure client treatment's going well, make sure clients are getting what they need, and to really hold clients' hands rather than having to just read medical records all day. So one of my paralegals that was doing this, she's now my director of operations. So she went from reading medical records all day to helping run the law firm, which just tells you how important, a system like LawPro can be for a law firm.
Of course. And even in that sense, so I'm assuming like LawPro uses already produced files, let's say from a doctor, right? His notes on the actual, his diagnosis to the treatment and everything like that. And especially when you guys are handling such massive case volumes, even if you have the best of the best working for you, things slip through the cracks. And it's that type of tool that's changing the game in personal injury because let's be honest, this is not the 1990s where it's the Wild West of personal injury. I mean, everything now requires a medical expert, another medical expert, somebody to evaluate and examine everything. And a lot of times the clients get lost in translation, right? Because you're so busy doing that. And I think LawPro is amazing, especially I think, as from a recent research, personal injury claims have gone up, I think 35% from 2010 to now. That's how many more claims have come out in the past, just 15 years. And if it continues to go with media, every place there's a camera, every person now understands, they're a little bit more informed on what their rights are. Not everybody, but people understand what the value is in those cases. Kind of to go back on the dog bite case, one of the recent things I saw with, if you're an Amazon delivery driver and let's say you're working on a 1099, you have your own truck, if there's any accident or in that truck, Amazon's not liable, right? And if there's no protection, like considering, let's say dog bite situation, Amazon's not going to cover you. So you need somebody in your corner to have that, at least backup or protection. And that's kind of what you guys are doing. Probably why you're the most influential and top rated firm in all of Maryland and growing even further.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point that if you're a 1099, you don't technically have an employer, you're a contractor. And so you don't fall under the workers' comp statute. And so that would mean, you could be doing your job, you get injured, the company you thought that would help take care of you, they're not going to because you're technically an independent contractor. And the person whose dog it is, they're not going to take care of you because they're going to say, oh, I'm not at fault for this. Stuff happens, right? And but now with the law the way that we have it, in those cases they are taken care of. The medical bills will be taken care of, and they will get money for pain and suffering as well. So yeah, so I think it's a really important thing that we've done there with that. And it's just, it's important that people can live their lives and feel like they're protected and being taken care of. And furthermore, it's important that law firms are doing it the right way and are getting clients full value. There's law firms out there that will just pressure clients to settle cases and settle, you got to settle, because they don't know how to file a lawsuit. They don't know how to go to court. It's important that clients are getting full value for their cases. And I hear all the time from law firms like, well, we don't miss anything. We never miss anything in the medical records. And it's just, that's just not, if you truly believe that, then you're missing the whole idea of this, the whole concept of what being a good lawyer is and what being a good law firm is, because no one's perfect. No human's perfect. And so knowing no human's perfect, even the smallest thing can slip through. I had a case that recently we ran through LawPro. It was one hospital visit. It looked like nothing. It looked like a very small case. We only took it because it was a good client of ours. And there was one sentence in hundreds of pages that talked about how the client hurt her voice box in the accident, a really random injury that you typically don't see in a car accident. So I called the client and I asked, what's the deal with this? And she explained to me how her throat hit the seat in front of her and her voice hasn't been the same since. Well, she has one hospital visit, $1,500 of medical bills, but that doesn't matter, right? Her voice is now acting differently for the rest of her life because of this accident. Like, that's a big deal for your client. And you need to be there for them.
Damaged.
What's that?
She's permanently damaged.
Exactly right.
And even if it seems small, I mean, at times, it's kind of callous to think, hey, her voice box is damaged for life. It's not really worth that much. But who are you to say what the value is on that, especially as an adjuster? You don't know if she sings as a hobby. You don't know, if you don't even know if she works in sales or whatever. It doesn't even matter. Let's say she just has the right to have her own voice. And if somebody's taken that away from her or damaged it for life, there should be, adequate compensation without feeling degraded, right? When they try to say, your injury or your pain is only worth, $1,000, $10,000. I mean, who are you to really say this on a daily basis as adjusters? And I think, one of the points that you brought up that's actually paramount. Other personal injury firms, yes, they're big in settle, take the money. And I know you brought up, maybe they don't know how to go to court and how to file a suit. And a lot of times that is the case. But even more so, they don't want to. They want to get a quick buck, get this case in, lower the billable hours, because a lot of times, I mean, like your firm, there's zero fees unless you win, right? If you don't win, you don't get paid. So these guys look at it, I'm going to take as many cases on as possible, do as little work as possible, because I'm now, putting my stuff at risk because they didn't pay me. But in reality, you got to keep that ethic code. It doesn't matter if it's a big case or a small case. You have to use your knowledge and your prowess and understand, hey, is this the best route for my client? And at that point, move forward. Is it, you can't be selfish. And it seems like you guys are very, adamant on holding that, integrity intact for your firm. Just looking at all the verdicts, I mean, you have numerous verdicts where adjusters offered you zero, and then they try to come up and give you 10 grand. I mean, I think we're looking at one right now where they offered you zero, then they came back and offered you 10K, and you guys were even able to do like 220,000 above. Tell us about those cases.
Yeah. So, a couple of years ago, I started looking to, maybe we can try cases a different way. Because just like what you're saying, who's an adjuster telling me the case is worth 10,000 or 15,000? I started looking into these cases about, why have we just accepted that a case with 6 weeks of physical therapy is only worth $10,000? Why has that been acceptable to us? I had a client where my client, it changed his life. He was a maintenance guy for an apartment complex. And during those 6 weeks of medical treatment, he eventually was let go from his job. And then things spiraled downward for him from there. And so for him to have a settlement offer of $10,000, which, by the way, after paying off the medical bills, the attorney's fees, and everything else, would net him about $3,000, that didn't seem right. So I took that case. I took a handful of others. I said, we're going to try these cases differently. And we did. And we were very successful in the vast majority of them, where, that case you're talking about, I ended up winning $228,500 from a jury. And the juror came and apologized to me after the verdict and said that her and four other jurors wanted to give $500,000, but one juror did not. And so they had to compromise at $228,000, which was fine. That was more than fair for the client's injuries. And I told the juror, don't worry about it. You guys did right by my client. I appreciate it. Those are the kinds of things, who's to say, I did another one where the client had $17,000 in medical bills and they were offering zero. They're like, oh, there's no damage to the vehicle. Your person couldn't be hurt. There's no damage. And, we went and tried the case. And I asked the jury for about 176,000, 78,000, something like that. And the jury came back and gave us 360,000, 370,000, something like that. Because, my client explained, and this was it's really important for a juror to be able to understand how this has impacted your client. And you can do so with other witnesses, third-party witnesses, damage witnesses, what I call them. But what was really important here was the client explained how his mom had worked multiple jobs her whole life to help him get through school. And he's become very successful in his own right now. And his one thing he did for his mom was he would go to her house every week and bring up the waters that she had delivered from the basement to the kitchen. And that was his way of giving back to his mom. But since the accident, he couldn't do that anymore. And this was a big, strong, grown man on the stand. And he got emotional about, not being able to just pay back his mom the way he was anymore. And the juror understood that. And they totally agreed with it because it made sense. So, I agree that we shouldn't be just listening to what an adjuster and insurance company tells us is a fair value. We have to listen to our clients in terms of how this is really impacted. Now, we can't exaggerate injuries and we can't make stuff up, right? You have to be honest and truthful. But if this has had a real impact on you as a person, on your job, on you with your family, then that story needs to be told and you need to get full value for it, whether it's in settlement or litigation.
In that essence, you talked about the gentleman's mother. I mean, I can tell you from a personal story, my mom herself was coming to visit me. I think it was about maybe 10 years ago. She was coming to visit me at my house. She got hit on 66. Some guy was trying to merge. They were taking the exit. He merged 4 lanes from the left, fast lane all the way to the exit, hit my parents. My dad ended up going into the wall, right? Shattered my mom's shoulder. And at the end of the day, she had her physical therapy. She had a surgery. And they gave her a settlement of like $25,000, and they should have fought for it. I told them they should have fought for it, but my mom, she's older, and she's like, I don't really want to fight, things like that. But even to this day, like I can tell you personally, on September 2nd, she's having a surgery for that same shoulder because now the tendon is basically hanging on by like a thread, and they're having to reconstruct everything. And these are the things that happen, time and time again. There's so many people that you see, and maybe she doesn't work. That doesn't mean it doesn't affect her life. It doesn't mean that she loves to sew and knit and paint. She can't even lift a paintbrush up anymore. But you ask an adjuster, they're going to say, well, we put that in value, and the value, well, she's not losing any wages, she's not losing any money from it, so it's worth nothing. But it's very sad that you see people go through this, and it's even more important to have attorneys like yourself and your firm that really goes to fight for your clients. And sometimes, obviously people want to get the money aspect of it, but it's just the fact that there's somebody there to protect them, right? Somebody there to stand by them that has the experience and the knowledge, such as yourself, to ensure that people are not getting cheated from the system.
Yeah. There's a couple of points I want to make on that from what you're saying, and I agree with everything you're saying. But one is, there's so much amazing technology out there for law firms right now that I think it's the law firm owner and employee's responsibility to be able to incorporate this technology. The insurance companies are using it, right? Insurance companies are using technology to help get the upper hand. Law firms, personal injury law firms, need to be using technology to fight back. And right now, so many law firms are either scared or they don't want to spend the money or they don't want to learn something new. But what I say to law firms is imagine going from a typewriter to computer. We are in an age right now where if you are not using some form of AI to help your law practice won't exist at some point in time. And there's no way you can compete with the billion-dollar insurance companies. These insurance companies are worth billions, sometimes hundreds of billions of dollars. They have more people, they have more resources, they have more staff, they have more technology. The only way you can compete is by using technology. So that's number one. And I think technology is so vital and crucial for the law firm to exist and be able to help people in the community and for your clients to get the best outcomes. And the second piece of this is that, when starting a law firm or looking to go into this business, you can make a good living in it for sure. It's been very good to me. But what you also have to keep in mind is why you're going into this. If you're going into it for the money, you probably will not be super successful, or you won't be as successful as you could have been. If you're going into it to help people, to generally help the community, then that can help you grow vastly more successful because clients can see the difference, right? And when clients get the feeling, can see that you're there to really help them, that they tell you to take an offer, but you get them more just because you want to help them more, clients can see that, and that brings good things to you. So one thing I want to give a shout out to my team is doing now, which we've incorporated, is every quarter we're doing things around the community. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be going to 2 local elementary schools and giving out back to school supplies, backpacks for every kid, school supplies in every backpack to start off the new school year for all of them, for kids and families that might have had trouble buying that stuff. So I think it's incredibly important to do right by your clients and do right by the community of where you're in.
That is so inspirational because you don't when and one of the reasons we started this podcast was to change the stereotypes, to put a bright light on firms and founders just like yourself and what they're really doing in the community and how they're making an impact, not just with their firm but with the people around them, because at the end of the day, you are an officer of the law. You represent individuals that are injured on a daily basis. It's kind of like you're, a pillar of the community. You are that. And when you see firms like yourself giving back, treating the community, they've gotten, a lot of rewards from the community itself, and now giving back to that same community. It's not about money. It's not about, oh, I'm going to get more clients or get more referrals. It's just about doing what's right because it's right. And you don't normally see that. And when you see people say personal injury, ambulance chaser, it's such a negative connotation, because I can tell you, in my experience, I've worked with over 60 law firms. We've generated over 100 million in revenue for these law firms. And I've never, to this day, really met a personal injury attorney that has that ambulance chaser mentality. You find some of them, but in reality, that's not the case. Most of them, because you're dealing with sensitive topics daily, people's pain, families being destroyed, careers being shattered. I mean, this is your daily work. I mean, people say doctors have to have a bedside manner and have a strong stomach. I mean, you have to have a strong mind. Every single day, you're dealing with people's literally worst times in their life most of the time, and have to carry them through that, counsel them, talk to them, hold their hand, and then still figure out what's the best strategy to get them, in the best position after all this chaos. I definitely commend you guys, especially you guys are working out near Baltimore. There's so many disadvantaged families that kids can't afford school supplies. They can't even get backpacks. They can't get shoes. And it's sad because a lot of these kids could and will have bright futures if there's more companies, firms, and supporters in the community that maybe are better off financially, better off or better positioned, that actually give back. And that's really how you build your brand. But outside of the business aspect, it's how you really make an impact on life. Life is, you don't take your money when you die. My personal philosophy, people can believe it or don't believe it or go with it or not, is, it's not about how much you make in your life or, what, awards you win. It's how much you've impacted the people around you in your life, because that's the only thing that's going to actually last. That's what's going to be written in the books. That's going to be people talking about you. And that's really what's going to really be a testament to who you were and how you lived. So tell us a little bit more about, how you guys are scaling your firm. 10,000, you want to help 10,000 people in the next 10 years. So that's averaging about 1,000 cases a year. Just about what, let's say 85 cases a month that you guys are bringing on at that rate. So how is that strategy, going to be implemented? And how have you guys built such a successful firm? 30 employees is, that's no small firm. Most firms, are around for 25, 30, 40 years, and they'll be lucky if they get to 3 paralegals and 2 associates. You guys are making some, great impacts, scaling the business. It's sustainable, and you're being able to juggle, multiple things at the same time. Tell us how someone who's looking to be a firm founder or start their own business can get some insight from you on your success.
Sure. So a couple things. Number one, you need to have great people. So if you don't have great people, then it's going to be hard for your firm to grow and be successful. If you're always trying to hire at the cheapest rate or find the cheapest people, it's likely not going to lead to success. You got to find great people. And so my belief is you're only good as your people. So number one, you got to find great people. Number two, you got to know your numbers. And everyone talks about knowing your numbers. I'm not talking about knowing how much it costs for your box of paper, or how much it costs, for your copier. I'm not talking about those numbers. I'm talking about, what's your acquisition costs of clients? And what's your average case value? And, what's your sign up rate? And how many do you have? I call them, how many people are leaking through your funnel that you're not signing up? And why aren't you signing up those people? And what do you have to do to change your sales to sign those people up? Right? These are all metrics and meetings. We have a meeting about this every week. And these are metrics we look at every day. And I can tell you, when I speak to firms that have been around a lot longer than I have, and I ask them, what's your average case value? Or how much does a client acquisition cost? They look at me like I'm crazy. Like, I don't know. Clients come in when they come in. We settle cases when we settle cases. And some are really big and some are really small. There's no concept of it with most firms. But if you don't know these numbers, then how do you know where to put your marketing dollars? How do you know what to ramp up, and how do you know what to decrease? How do you know if your sales are working or aren't working? How do you know how many people you've even spoken to this month that are interested in possibly hiring your services? You're flying blind. And unfortunately, that's most law firms. Most law firms are flying blind, and they're just hoping the cases come in, and they're hoping to hit a big one every once in a while and just keep the lights on. But if you don't know these basic numbers, and it's funny, when I was first starting as a law firm owner, I thought the numbers were like, all right, this is how much paper costs me, and this is how much my copier costs, and this is how much. I thought those were the numbers. But no, there's much more important numbers than that, and there's no way to grow without knowing those numbers.
No, there's not. I mean, Warren Buffett said a quote a couple years ago. If you want to find true success in your business, you have to measure. And if you're not measuring, you're never going to find true wealth and true success. And those KPIs, I tell all my clients, and a lot of them come just like you said, they've had semi-successful firms, they're doing generally well, but they're stuck in a rut, they've plateaued, maybe they're kind of going down, and you ask them, what are your numbers? Oh, well, our cost per lead is this. And I tell a lot of personal injury firms and criminal defense, or just firms in general, cost per lead is a way for marketing companies to look good, right? They're going to tell you, hey, we got 200 leads this month, and the cost per lead went from X amount to this amount. It went down 20%. Nobody cares about cost per lead. What's the cost per acquisition? How much does it cost for us to get a client? How many clients are we potentially losing because we're not following up on opportunities? And what are we looking at? Where are our strong points and where are our weak points? If you don't know these things, just like you said, how can you scale the firm? Because all that's going to happen is, you might pump more money into it, and it just exacerbates the weak points. So everything goes to scale. Like, if you're losing, let's say, 50 clients for every $10,000 you spend. Well, putting 30,000 into it, now you got 150 clients that you're losing, instead of plugging the holes, fixing it, understanding it, and putting your team in a position where they're also responsible for their actions. You guys have to look at this. And, one of the things, yes, we do legal marketing. And, this might kind of go against, my other colleagues, but realistically, if you're not looking at the best interest for the firm, who's your client, then you're not really doing your job correctly. And a lot of people think short term. I want to make as much money as I can in the next 6 months or 12 months. I look at it like this. My job is to make the firm as much money as possible so they can pay me what I need to get paid. And not the other way around where, hey, I need to get paid, otherwise I can't do the work. Maybe they have a smaller budget. Maybe they're not as big. But if you position them correctly and put them on a path where they can find success and make them that money, they're not going to have an issue. I mean, you seem to have run such a successful firm and know some of the innate ins and outs. And people talk about, oh, my, like you said, copier, my paper, my service costs. I mean, that's just noise in the end of the day, right? You're trying to cut a budget from 1,500 to 1,400 because you found, a deal on, discount paper. That doesn't really matter. I mean, look at the numbers that matter. And most importantly, like you said, if you're hiring staff, hire the best that you can, because realistically is this. If they're cheap, then that means that they're not in demand. And if they're not in demand, then that generally means that they're not good. Unless you're in some economic downfall and nobody has a job and it's like COVID 2.0 or something like that where you can't find a position, then you can kind of work the numbers. But if there's an open market out there and they say, they have 10 years of experience, but they want, half of what everybody else is asking for, you should kind of look at that a little bit deeper and say, okay, why are they taking half? Why do they have 10 different firms on their resume in the past 10 years? What is it that is the issue there? And I also believe, one of the things, you're only as good as your worst employee. And if you're not leading them, a lot of people, they'll tell them, hey, do this, do that, do this. And sometimes it's not in their KPIs, sometimes it's not their specialty. You got to kind of hone what their potential is, because a lot of people have great potential and a lot of people are, find passion in things they do, and it may not be the current task that you're giving them. So either you have to teach them and give them direction, but if you don't do that, don't get mad when they don't do it correctly or do it the way you want. And I'm pretty sure in your firm you guys have strong SOPs, correct?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do is we constantly are training, and SOPs are really important, but the training is never done. So, just last on Friday, one of my managers said, hey, 2 o'clock, I'm doing a training for this. 3 o'clock, I'm doing a training for this. Whoever wants to come to the conference room, come into the conference room. And most people went to the conference room because they could use a refresher on those things. And so the training, yes, you need great standard operating procedures, but you need to constantly be training, and that training never ends. And going along with what you were saying, the baseline you set for your firm, the standard that you set for your firm, is basically the standard of your worst employee. Your worst employee sets the standard of the firm. So think about that for a second. Your worst employee sets your firm standard. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, but it's reality. And so when you think about it like that, that makes you start thinking like, okay, I still have, so-and-so working here. I know she's not a great fit here. I know she's not doing great work, but we're just going to keep her. But when you think about it, now that's the standard of your firm. That might change how you look at it. And the only other thing I'll mention to you is in terms of hiring employees and getting good talent. I tell all of my staff, paralegals, lawyers, doesn't matter who you are. We're typically a little bit on the lower end to start, but you show us what you can do. You give us 1 year, you show us what you can do, and I'm not going to limit your upside. There's plenty of firms that say, well, paralegals can't make more than this, or the most that we pay paralegals is this. That's not how it works in our firm. In our firm, you can make as much money as you want, as long as you work hard, you do well by our clients, you're doing well with our cases. There's no limit in terms of how you can grow. And as this firm grows, people internally grow with it. So my director of operations, she's been with me for 13 years. She was the one that was reading all the medical records before as a paralegal. My operating manager below her, she's been here for 6 years. Came with no legal experience, whatever. She was in the restaurant business. She came here, she showed us what she could do in a year, and she's moved all the way up ahead of many other people because she's so good. So, I just say to people, it's hard to find out from an interview and a resume if somebody's really going to be good or not good. Really difficult. I struggle with that. There's lots of other tests you can give people to take and personality tests and everything else. Some firms have started doing that now. Most firms don't, obviously. But if you show me in a year what you can do, you have no limit with our office. And I think people appreciate to know that they can really make a career with the office. Now, it's just not a job of like, okay, I'll get my 3% raise each year. No, you can get significant raises and bonuses by hitting KPIs and by doing great work. And like you're talking about, most firms don't even know what a KPI is, let alone have them. And so it's incredibly important, obviously, to keep your firm on track and to get everyone working to the same goal, rowing in the same direction. One other quick thing I'll mention is, obviously, you're into legal marketing for law firms. And, the thing that drives me nuts are the vanity metrics that are shown from legal marketing firms. Now, we had this many clicks and we had this many people come to your website, and this is how long they're staying on your website. And I'm just like, guys, just tell me, who are we signing up? And how much is it costing? And what do we have to do to sign up more? What other ideas do we have to sign up more? If they're staying on my page for 3 minutes, but they're not hiring us, I don't care, right? And if I have 6,000 people coming to my website this month, but next month I have 3,000, but those 3,000 I got more cases from, we'll figure out the difference. And why do we get more cases from the 3,000? And let's do that. So all the vanity metrics just drive me crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially we started out as an SEO firm, and you look at the numbers. When we first started doing reporting, and I looked at some consulting firms, and we were just really looking at what do clients want, and they're like, well, just like you said, they're on they're on the website this long, and they click this many times, and we're ranking here and this and that. And the real numbers, and I tell all my clients this, the only numbers that matter is the one that reflect your bank account. Pretty much at the end of the day, when you break everything down, all the clicks, all the time, all the, click-through rates, all the rankings, how does it affect the bottom line? Does it affect the bank account? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't really matter, because a lot of them, oh, it's working, it's working, it's working. If it's working, then you should be having cases that are converting and have potential revenues coming down the pipeline. Otherwise, it's not working. Simple as that. Unless you're like like Coca-Cola, right? Huge company. Their commercials don't draw, it doesn't move the needle on their revenue stream. They do it for brandability, and they're that big. You don't, go and see a commercial for Coca-Cola and drive to the store and say, hey, I need a Coke. They do it so when you go to the store and you see a Coke and you see a Pepsi, you grab the Coke. And that's kind of, on a high level system. And especially like, with firms, I think one of the biggest things that, you touched on today, statistically, even with how much AI is improving and how much AI is affecting industries, and it seems like every firm is using AI and every company is using AI. It's not. Statistically, right now, 95% of firms are not integrated with AI. And the firms that are integrated with AI, only 10% of them are currently using it to its best of ability. Most of them get these services, sign up for it, barely on board, barely use the tool, and then they're like, oh, the tool's not working. I mean, you have to put in effort. You have to teach your team how to use it so it's, advantageous to you. And just in that notion, you guys are not only, ahead of the game, right? You also have LawPro.ai coming out, and yes, it's separate business, but it just shows how you guys are on the cutting edge. And law firms traditionally are the slowest industry to transition into a new technology. And with that at hand, I mean, just let's say you guys are just doing AI in the firm. You guys are still in the top 5% just for doing that, just there. So, one of the things that, I have to say with you, Josh, is, you guys are building something magnificent at the firm, right? You guys are growing. I probably predict you guys are at 30 employees in 2025. I would say by 2035, you guys are at least at 75 employees, doing more than 10,000 clients in 10 years. You're probably doing 2,000 clients a year, multiple locations. And it's just a testament to your character, your ability to navigate and lead with not only, excellence in your expertise as an attorney, your business mindset is really what pushes everything apart. You're able to handle your cases on a very, very high expert level, while at the same time, you and your partner are able to manage the firm in such a way where you're not just, running a law firm, you're growing and building a law firm that actually is making an impact. And these are the actions that people take that create legacies. That's what, legacy wealth is, and that's what you guys are doing. Before we wrap everything up, tell me, what's the future? I know 10,000 clients in the next 10 years, but what's the immediate future for Zirkin and Schmerling Law?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for all those kind words. I don't think my wife has ever been that kind to me, so I appreciate it. Not sure I'm deserving of all of them, but thank you. So, the immediate future, obviously, is to just be out there in the community, helping as many people as possible, and continue getting out there. We're doing the backpacks coming up in a couple of weeks. We're starting to plan what we're going to do in Q4 around November, December time. And, I have somebody in-house in the office that helps us plan these outings to help our community. So just making sure we stay on top of that we continue to grow, that we continue to look not only to grow our firm, but to grow as individuals. I expect all my employees to grow with us as we grow as a paralegal grows as a person, as a lawyer. I can grow as well. I think that's really important that we all grow together. And LawPro is super excited about that. We've been at market now for over a year. We're working with law firms throughout the entire country. Some of the biggest law firms in the personal injury space, all the way down to small man and pop shops. It's really nice that we can help law firms of all sizes, which at the end of the day helps their customers, the injured victims here. So that's super exciting for us. I have a lot of different conferences I'm going to be at in the next 6 weeks, including I'll be in Vegas, LA, Detroit, Boston, Atlanta. So if I'm about 6'4" and I always wear Jordan. So if anybody's at any of those conferences, please feel free to come shout out and come say hi. But yeah, that's a lot of fun stuff coming up.
You checking out PimCon?
I will have a team there. I was there last year. Great conference. Amazing conference. But I'll have a team there. I won't be there this year. Are you going?
This year I'm actually going next year.
Okay.
I was supposed to go this year, but I got my cousin's getting married in India, so I have to go there.
Okay, it's a great conference. Last year was their first year doing it, and Chris did an amazing job putting that conference on. They had great speakers. It was a great time. So anybody thinking about going, I would definitely say they should go.
Yeah, Chris is a solid guy. And I think one of the last things, I want to really bring up to any firm, and this, like I said, again, is an opinion, but I've seen this happen time and time again. I think that if you're a firm that truly values, your staff and your firm, raise your paralegals up. I think paralegals, when it comes to a law firm, is really one of the factors that you can actually judge the pulse of a firm. Because paralegals are, they're the heartbeat of the firm at the end of the day. You have the attorneys who are the brains and the body, but the real heartbeat, the lifeblood of the firm comes from the paralegals, and it has to be a symbiotic relationship. whether you're, have $1 billion in settlements, or, you're just starting out, value your paralegal, position them correctly, and, your firm will definitely see, exponential growth and, residual gains from it. One of the last things, guys, if you're scaling your firm, if you're looking to grow, check out growthxmarketing.ai. We're recently awarded the best law firm marketing agency in the United States for 2024. We focus on firms of all sizes, but the real goal is to focus on firms that are looking to scale, but not just scale exponentially, but scale with sustainability. Because that volatility that you get, especially in the beginning with cash flow with personal injury firms, it's tight, but if you have a sustainable model, you can continue to grow and make sure that those foundations are strong. Josh, where can somebody find you if they're, have personal injury problems, dog bite problems, workers' comp? How can they find you guys, as well as, LawPro?
Yeah. So for law firm needs, just call my office anytime, 410-356-4455. You're welcome to ask for me anytime. For LawPro, the best way is email me, josh@lawpro.ai, josh@lawpro.
Awesome, awesome. And guys, if you need to get to their website, I believe it's znslaw.com. So that's ZANDSLAW.com. They're right here in Maryland. They're homegrown. They're, like I said, they're one of the best firms, that we have to offer in Maryland. If you have any issues, reach out to Josh. He'll take care of you like he's taken care of to thousands of other clients. Thank you for coming today, Josh. Episode was great. We look forward to having you again, and all the success for LawPro, and hopefully I get to see you at one of those conventions soon.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
Own your growth. Scale with systems powered by GrowthX.